I've lived in northern Minnesota all my life, and if there's one thing we take seriously out here, besides hunting, it's ice fishing. Every winter since I was a kid, I've been out on the frozen lakes with my dad, then later with friends, and now, mostly just alone. The spot I always return to is Lake McCoy. It's not big, not famous, but it's quiet, out of the way, and full of crappie and northern pike. The kind of place where you can be completely alone and not see another person for hours, maybe even days. I had a small ice shack I built myself. Nothing fancy, just a simple wooden frame with a collapsible roof, a little heater, and some folding chairs. I'd tow it out there every season with my snowmobile, set up near the south end of the lake, where the weeds are thicker under the ice. That's where the big ones usually sit in the cold months. It was late January. Cold as hell, -20, maybe more. But I was used to it. That day was one of those days where everything was dead silent. No birds, no wind, just the sound of the ice groaning beneath the weight of winter. I had a flask of whiskey, a pack of jerky, and 3 lines in the water. Life was good. Around 4 p.m., I decided to step out of the shack to take a piss and stretch my legs. The sun was getting low, casting this orange glow across the snow that made everything look like it was on fire. Beautiful, but eerie too, in its own way. That's when I noticed it. About 40 yards from my shack, near the far edge of the lake, I saw a hole in the ice. Nothing unusual about that. People drill holes all the time. But this one, it looked off. It wasn't round, more like an uneven oval. The edges looked dark, melted. Curiosity got the better of me. I zipped up and trudged across the snow, boots crunching with every step. When I got closer, I felt something strange in the pit of my stomach, like my instincts were waving a red flag I didn't yet understand. The hole wasn't drilled at all. It was melted through. The edges were smooth, glassy, as if someone had taken a blowtorch and carved it open. I knelt beside it and peered down into the water, which was still almost perfectly so. No ripples, just that dark, bottomless blackness. And then I saw them. Eyes. 2 perfectly round, pale, glowing eyes just beneath the surface, staring directly up at me. They didn't blink, didn't move. They were just there, like they'd been waiting. I stumbled back, my boot slipping on the slick ice. I landed hard and scrambled to my feet, heart racing. I looked again, and the eyes were gone. Just black water. I rushed back to the shack, locked the door, and sat there for a good 20 minutes with my hands shaking in my lap. I kept trying to tell myself I imagined it, that it was the light, the reflection, something logical. But deep down, I knew I saw something. When the sun finally dipped behind the trees and everything went dark, I made the decision to pack it in early. I reeled up my lines, shoved my gear in my sled, and hooked it to the snowmobile. I kept looking over my shoulder the whole time. The sound of the wind had changed too. It wasn't just whistling anymore. It was whispering. I know that sounds crazy, but I swear on my life it sounded like voices carried on the gusts. Too faint to understand, but not natural. As I was about to start the engine, I saw the hole again. It was closer now, at least 20 feet closer than before. I hadn't heard the ice crack. I hadn't seen anything move, but it was there. Still melted. Still wrong. I hit the throttle and got the hell out of there. Back at home, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those eyes, the way they looked up at me like I wasn't a person, but prey. The next day, I told my neighbor Joe. He's been fishing that lake even longer than I have. When I mentioned the melted hole, he went real quiet. Then he told me something I'll never forget. He said years ago, back in the 80s, a guy went missing on that lake, just vanished. Left his gear, his shack, everything. They found his sled halfway between his fishing spot and the tree line, like he'd run for his life. They also found a melted hole in the ice near his shack. The official report said he probably fell in, but Joe told me his brother was on the search team, and they never found a body. No blood. No break in the ice. Just the hole. Same as I saw. I haven't been back since, and I never will. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about those eyes. Pale, endless, waiting beneath the ice. And I wonder if whatever lives in that lake ever leaves it. Or if it's just hungry. If this story creeped you out, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support matters a lot. I was 19 when this happened. Early summer, 2014. My buddy Kyle and I had just finished our first year of college, and we decided to celebrate the freedom with a weekend of camping and fishing. We picked Lake Nera, a quiet, secluded lake in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. No cell service, no other campers, just us, the trees, and the water. It was the kind of place people only knew about through word of mouth. Kyle's older cousin had told him about it, said it had great bass fishing, no rangers, and total silence. Sounded perfect. We packed light, just a couple of tents, sleeping bags, tackle, a cooler of food, and a pair of rods. We arrived late Friday afternoon, set up camp about 40 feet from the water, and started fishing right away. The lake was like glass, calm, smooth, dark. That first night was peaceful. We made a small fire, roasted some dogs, and knocked back a couple of beers. Around midnight, we killed the fire and crawled into our tents. I slept like a rock. But around 3 a.m., I woke up. At first, I thought I'd just dreamed something weird. But then I noticed it was a little too bright outside for that hour. Not like morning light. More like flickering light. I unzipped the tent and looked out. Someone was walking along the far side of the lake, holding a lantern, not a flashlight. A lantern. Like an old-school oil one. It swayed with every step, glowing faint orange. I thought maybe it was another camper we hadn't noticed. Maybe they set up after dark. But the thing is, the lake had no access on that side. No roads, just a steep slope and a ton of brambles and underbrush. You'd have to hike a mile through dense forest to even reach that side. And it wasn't a trail. It was wild. I watched for a while. The person didn't stop, just kept walking slowly, following the edge of the water. Their body was stiff, posture unnatural. They didn't turn their head or look around, just kept walking. Eventually, they disappeared behind the trees. I told Kyle about it the next morning, but he laughed it off. Probably some hunter, he said, or a weirdo doing night fishing. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That night, after we'd fished all day and were back by the fire, I noticed something else. Across the lake, same spot as before, I saw the lantern again. Only this time, the person wasn't walking. They were standing. Just standing there, holding the lantern perfectly still. Watching. Or at least facing us. I nudged Kyle and pointed. His smile faded the second he saw it. Dude, what the hell? We both stared, waiting for it to move. It didn't. Just that soft glow. Unmoving. Unnatural. After maybe 30 seconds, the light blinked out, like someone blew out the flame. We didn't sleep that night. Every sound made us jump. The trees felt too close. The water, too quiet. By morning, we were both exhausted, but too stubborn to pack up early. We figured we'd fish a little longer and leave after lunch. Around 10 a.m., I was down by the water, casting near a fallen log, when I saw something floating. At first, I thought it was trash, but as it got closer, I realized it was a small wooden object. A box. It drifted slowly toward shore like it had been released upriver, except there was no current. I waded in and grabbed it. It was hand-carved, soaked through, with a broken leather strap attached to it. Inside was nothing, except the unmistakable smell of kerosene. I looked up at Kyle, who was standing near the fire pit. He saw my face and immediately said, "We're done. Let's pack." We didn't argue. We tore the camp down in under 15 minutes. No lunch, no more fishing, just pure instinct telling us to leave. As we loaded the last bag into the truck, I glanced back at the lake. There, across the water again, the lantern was back. But this time, it was daytime, and there was no one holding it. It hovered just above the shoreline, flickering. Then, like a match snuffed out, it vanished into the air. We peeled out of there and never went back. I've fished in a lot of places since then, but I never go near Lake Nira anymore. Not because I'm scared of the woods or what I saw, but because I know it wasn't meant for us to see. Some lakes don't want to be found, and some lights aren't trying to guide you. They're trying to lure you in. I used to live in Florida, just a little outside the Everglades. If you've ever fished down there, you know it's a different world. Mangroves twisting in every direction, water dark as oil, and gators sunbathing like they own the place. You learn to respect the land or it bites back, sometimes literally. This happened back in 2016. I'd just gone through a rough breakup and needed space from everyone. So I decided to head down to a lesser-known fishing spot near the 10,000 Islands. No tourists, no families, just a web of backwater creeks and hidden inlets where you could go hours without seeing a single soul. I took my little skiff out around noon, fully stocked with tackle, ice, water, and some jerky. I planned on spending the whole day drifting, and maybe even sleeping on the boat if I didn't feel like heading back. The fishing was good. Redfish, snook, even a small tarpon that gave me hell for a solid 10 minutes. I was feeling better than I had in weeks. Around 6 p.m., I tucked into this narrow channel surrounded by mangroves. It was beautiful, quiet, still, like the world had hit pause. But then I heard it. Low, muffled. It was humming. At first, I thought it might be the motor of a boat in the distance, but it wasn't moving. It sounded like it was coming from the trees. Just this soft, droning hum, like a voice without words. At one point, it almost sounded like it was repeating the same few notes, over and over. I killed my motor to listen better. The humming stopped. The silence that followed was so thick it made my ears ring. Then, suddenly, snap. A branch, not more than 30 feet to my right, cracked like someone had stepped on it. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it at the edge of the mangroves. Nothing. But that's the thing with those trees. They're dense. Whatever was in there could have been 2 feet away and I wouldn't have seen it. Then came the splash. It wasn't a fish. I know that sound too well. This was heavier, like someone slipped and dropped a leg into the water. My heart was pounding. I told myself it was probably a raccoon or even a gator. But deep down, I knew better. Still, I stayed. Against my better judgment, I tied the boat to a root and cracked open a beer, telling myself I was overthinking. I even laughed a little to calm my nerves. That's when I heard it again. The humming. But this time, it was louder, and it was behind me. I turned slowly, scanning the water and the tangled brush behind the boat. My flashlight flicked for a second, then steadied. I didn't see anyone, but something was in those trees. I could feel it. I untied the rope and started backing the skiff out of the channel. The outboard motor sputtered for a second before roaring back to life. As I pulled out, I kept the light trained on the shore. Just before I turned fully away, I saw something move. It was a person, or at least it looked like one. They were crouched down in the water, half submerged, with long, dripping hair hanging over their face. I couldn't make out the features, but their body was completely still, like they were waiting. And then they tilted their head. Not like a curious dog. It was wrong. Too fast. Too sharp. I floored it. I didn't stop till I was back in open water, a good mile from the channel. I turned off the motor and sat there for a while, heart hammering in my chest. The water was calm. The sky was black. And then, far behind me, across the glassy surface of the inlet, I heard that same humming, drifting out from the mangroves like it had never stopped. I slept with one eye open that night, anchor dropped far from shore. By morning, I made a beeline back to the marina. I didn't talk about it for a long time. Most people think the swamps just play tricks on you. The sounds, the shadows, the isolation, it messes with your head. But that humming, I'll never forget it. It didn't sound confused or lost. It sounded like it knew I was there, like it was calling me.